Hello, good day. The Olympics 2024 kicked off a few days ago, and while there are many sports, as always in Olympics, and one of them is soccer, I have an interest in predicting soccer match outcomes, as I did, for instance, also for the Euro 2024 tournament and many tournaments earlier. And well, in this video, I share a few tips and tricks on how to predict soccer matches using a model which is actually a slightly extended version of what I used for the Euro 2024, for which you can also find videos on my YouTube channel. My name is Jimmy Lapping. I'm a psychologist and statistician with a wide range of interests, including a lot of phenomena that you can predict somehow with statistical models, some of which also include sports events. So in this video, I show how to predict the outcomes of soccer matches. There are many different models that can be used, some of which are more complex than others. If you use complex models, that also means that you need more variables to take into account, you need more data. And if you have some somewhat simpler models, then you can actually also, with relatively limited data, make a prediction and be right in a fair proportion of the matches, as I will also show in this video. So what happens in soccer is that two teams of 11 players face off. Of course, those teams can have three possible outcomes. Either there is a win for Team A, or there is a win for Team B, or there is a draw. So win Team A, draw, or win Team B. These are the three possible outcomes. A priori, these have a certain probability of occurring, and when for instance we look at the qualifiers for the Euro 2024, we see that the distribution of match outcomes is fairly similar to a 40-20-40 distribution, meaning that Team A has a 40% chance of winning, there is a 20% chance of a draw, and there is a 40% chance of winning for Team B. Actually, there is the probability for Team A was slightly above 40%, but which has to do with the fact that the home playing team tends to have a slight advantage. There are slightly more home wins than away wins, but actually the distribution of qualifier matches doesn't deviate significantly from this 40-20-40 distribution. So this is a reasonable starting point. Of course, that is a priori. That if you don't know which team is playing against which team, you could say, okay, there is a 40% chance of winning for each, and then a 20% draw. But of course, each of these teams has also historical data. Suppose that Team A is playing at home and Team B is playing it away. So what you can do is take the last 5 home matches from Team A and compare that with the last 5 away matches for Team B. This way you use historical performance, and you also account, to some extent at least, for the relative home advantage that in this case Team A would have. If Team B are playing at home, then you would take the last 5 matches from Team A that they played away and the last 5 home matches from Team B. But here it is such: Team A home matches, Team B away matches. What I do in my model is I use the 5 numbers of goals that Team A scored in their last matches, which you see in blue here. Those are used as indicators of Team A's scoring potential against an opponent in home matches. And the numbers in red on the right I use as Team B's scoring potential in away matches against opponents. Then I also use the goals that Team B got against as an indicator of a scoring potential of an opponent against Team B when Team B are playing away. And the numbers in red on the left, so the goals that Team A got against in their last 5 matches, I use as an indicator of the scoring potential for an opponent against Team A when Team plays at home. When Team A plays at home. So, okay, suppose that we have these 5 matches. If we don't have any results, or we don't know what the results are, just two teams playing against each other, you would say there's a 40% chance for each to win the match and a 20% chance of a draw. And if you have to make a dichotomous decision, then it would be 50-50. Then the draw probability is split. Now it's 40-20-40 because in most matches, in leagues, for instance, there is a draw is a valid outcome. Now, what I also want to introduce is the concept of what I call weak start. Some literature uses the term weak incentive, which is, for instance, to say that if, let's say, Team A already won the league in which this match of A versus B is being played, then maybe Team A doesn't have the same incentive to win that match as they would have normally. So that would give them a weak start, which is not to say that Team A is going to, have an interest in getting a draw or even losing the match, or that deliberately they are going to play with a lower intensity than normally. But well, okay, it is, there is a psychological component here as well. Knowing that you have won the league maybe actually, create somewhat of an incentive to be a little bit more efficient with some of your resources, to maybe save some of your best players for other matches in another league, for instance, in another tournament. Give them some rest. Maybe try out different tactics which normally you wouldn't. So, well, there are in that case so there is a context in which Team A may not um, go to the full extent, deliberately or not, or undeliberately, to win the match as they would do usually. There are also other reasons which could generate a weak start. You can, for instance, think of, let's say, a team. For instance, the players in the team already know that they are going to actually be relegated to a lower league because they lost so many matches in the season that, well, they will have to go a division lower next time, or they can no longer qualify for the quarterfinals in a tournament, for instance, because they've lost too many matches. That might also create a weak start. And then you also have circumstances such as several key players being injured, an accident, bus accident or train accident whatsoever on the way to the match. So there are all kinds of circumstances can play a role here, which is why I don't use the term weak incentive, but rather weak start, because well, some of these weak start factors may have to do with incentives, but not all of them necessarily will. Now, if, for instance, if both teams don't have any weak start, and we don't have yet, for a moment, we don't look at the last 5 matches, just, suppose these are two teams that have never played against each other before, no weak start for any team, then you would say there is a 40% chance of winning for each team and a 20% chance of a draw. Now, suppose Team A has a weak start, that would reduce the probability of a winning because, well, there's less I mean, either there is that weaker incentive, or maybe there are injuries or other things. But well, weak start means that your probability of winning goes down, so Team B would have a higher probability of winning. And likewise, if Team B has a weak incentive but Team A has not, well, then we are likely to see more likely to see a win for Team A. And if both teams have a weak incentive, well, okay, that might create a situation where a draw is clearly the most likely outcome. Now, of course, these are a priori chances, not knowing the historical performance, which typically we do. So let's say a priori, without seeing any data, and no weak starts for any team, we would say 40-20-40 distribution. And well, if we have to, for instance, make a dichotomous decision, because, for instance, only one team can proceed to the next round, what I typically do is I split the draw probability in 2 equal parts and give that to each team. So it would be a 50-50 distribution, 50% chance for each team to win the match. So the 40-20-40 would be the prediction after regular time, which is what I see as 90 minutes plus a few minutes of injury, and the 50-50 distribution. This is what you get. This is actually the prediction for if it needs to go to extra time, right? If after regular time there is a draw and then they need the 30 minutes extra time and maybe even penalties, which team is then more likely to win? And well, the team with the highest probability in that case gets a win in my prediction. Okay, now suppose that, of course, we also have data for both teams. And well, in that case, it is, as simple as combining the a priori distribution that we have. So before seeing the data, then combine it with the data, and then we get a distribution, probability distribution after seeing the data, which in Latin is also called a posteriori, after, no, posterior. Now, and what I do in my model is actually I weigh them such that the data, so the 5 last matches from both teams, that has a weight of 2/3 and an a priori weight of 1/3. I will actually show in a minute with an example what that means in real percentages. And then I have so that the posterior distribution is one where the data have a 2/3 of weight, and the a priori distribution, or the prior distribution, has a 1/3 weight. Now suppose that we have here a match. This is just a fictitious example. Suppose that we have two teams playing against each other in the quarter-final. This is the rematch or the return match, because the previous, let's say 2 weeks ago, we had the same match, but it was Team B versus Team A. So Team A was the away playing team, and suppose that the Team A won that match by 2-0 or 3-0. And well, what happens in the Champions League, since the aggregate is determined over the two matches, given that Team A already had a good away win, the chances for Team B to win, on the basis of the aggregate and go to the next round, they are a lot smaller than they were before the first match. So maybe this creates a weak start for Team A, because, well, even if they lose 1-0 or 2-1 or 3-2 or whatever, they will still go to the next round. So that creates somewhat of a weak start for Team A. We have 5 different matches for Team A, 5 home matches for Team A, that were won all 5 by Team A, and we have here 5 matches for Team B, of which 2 were won by Team B and 3 ended in a draw. Now normally, if there was no weak start for Team A would have a probability of winning of 42.7%. It would be 10% higher than it is currently. And a Team B would have a 24% chance of winning, so that would be 10% less than it is now. However, when one team has a weak start and the other doesn't, what happens is that the team that has a weak start, the winning probability is reduced by 10% for that team, and the winning probability of the other team is increased by 10%. That's how it works when you give a 1/3 weight to the prior and a 2/3 weight to the data in my model. So without that weak start, Team A would be more likely to win, but now it seems that a draw is the most likely outcome over 90 minutes. And if I have to make a dichotomous decision, because, okay, in the end, for instance, suppose that this was actually, if it came to extra time after the regular time, then Team B would be more likely to win. But yeah, that doesn't apply here, most likely. So draw probability 33%. Why do I say that still a draw is the most likely outcome? Because in my model, I work such that as long as the difference between these two numbers, between parentheses, as long as that difference is 10% or less, so it could be 45% here and 55% here, that would be the maximum margin. As long as the margin does not exceed 10%, I say that the draw is the most likely outcome, at least for the regular time. And as soon as the distance between these two numbers in parentheses exceeds 10%, well, then it is a win for either of the two teams. So, for instance, if Team A had 44.3 and Team B had 55.7, then my prediction would be a win for Team B, which of course doesn't mean that Team B will actually win. It just means that, okay, with this model, what I say is that if we had many such matches, more of them would then result in a win for Team B than would result in a win for Team A, if those numbers were like that. Now, we see right now that the winning probabilities are, well, they are hardly different, and they also hardly differ from the draw probability. So actually, if we were to run this match, this scenario many times, my model would predict that in almost 1/3 of the cases, Team A would win. In about 1/3 of the cases, there would be a draw, and in just over 1/3 of the cases, Team B would win. So yeah, my prediction here, a draw, and that happens again because Team A has a weak start. Yes, they had better recent data based on the last 5 matches. But while for the current match, look, they have almost qualified, so they are not they're going to play with the same intensity as they would do otherwise. Next example, the opening match from the Euro 2024 tournament, which was Germany versus Scotland. Here it is important to say that for Germany I had to dig back quite a bit for the matches because so for Scotland, for instance, I got most of the matches from the Euro qualifiers and then one from the World Cup qualifiers a while ago. I don't use friendly matches in the last 5 matches because in friendly matches are just not representative. Teams can play in a different way than they would play normally. All kinds of weak start arguments can be at play here. So I only used for these predictions results from the qualifiers from in most cases the Euro qualifiers, and well, in the case of Germany, since Germany didn't have to qualify for the Euro 2024 since they were the host. I had to go back to the World Cup to get good predictions for Germany. Well, then you see on the left Germany's last 5 matches at home, 4 wins, 1 loss. And Scotland, we see the last 5 matches away, 3 wins for Scotland, 1 draw, and 1 loss. So this way, we also, I also try to account, at least to some extent, for home advantage. Because of course, at home, home teams tend to score a little bit more than away teams. Well, in this case, Germany is also a stronger opponent. So these different factors are kind of accounted in that comparison. When we then use our prior of 40, 20, 40% that I discussed earlier, because we have no weak start for any team. I mean, this was the first match in the tournament, so no one had qualified yet, and no one was yet certain that they couldn't qualify. So I assume 2 teams that have the same interest in winning the match. And what we get then is a 48% chance of a Germany win, a 22% chance of a draw, and a 30% chance of a Scotland win. So in this case, the distance between Germany win and Scotland win is 18%. And so that means in this case a margin more than 10%. So my prediction here was Germany would win. And well, they did. They won 5-1. Note that my model does not predict a goal difference, or does not try to predict numbers of goals either, because it is notoriously difficult to do that. It is quite difficult to predict how many goals each team is going to score and what the goal difference will be. Partly because you would need to use historical data, and well, first of all, it's quite unstable, the number of goals that the teams score in different matches, and second, there are also sometimes outliers and extreme cases, and they are somewhat difficult to deal with. For instance, here Germany, one of their last 5 matches, won 9-0. So yeah, that kind of outliers may have quite a bit of impact. although they are isolated cases, quite a bit of impact in the prediction of the goal difference, an unreasonable impact. So, in this case, the kind of model that I use is actually um, much more robust against these outliers, because what I do, and you can also see that in my videos on my channel on the Euro 2024 tournament, what I do literally is I compare each blue number against each red number, and so that will result either in a favor for Germany, or in a favor for Scotland, or in a draw if the difference is 0. That gives then a distribution for win, draw, and win for Germany, draw, and win for Scotland. And what? So I work with probabilities regardless of, win probabilities regardless of whether a team won 6-0, 15-0, or 3-0, which is, and I use 5 matches as well. It's not based on one single match, which well, maybe, one opponent that was, considerably weaker, for instance, or had a bad day. Which is, by the way, another assumption in my model, that for what I say, okay, Germany's 5 opponents, they may be quite different. And also just Scotland's previous 5 opponents may be quite different in the level that they have, and in the incentives that they have also to win the match, maybe. But what I assume is that the series of 5 matches for the 2 opponents is roughly comparable. Okay, next example. This is from the final group round of the Euro 2024, where we had a group among others with France, Poland, the Netherlands, and Austria. This was a group where after 2 matches, France and the Netherlands already had 4 points out of 2 matches. And while actually at that point, mathematically, they would already qualify, because, well, the best numbers, the numbers 1 and 2 of each group would qualify, and the best 4 numbers 3 of the different groups would qualify. And at that point, since in 2 other groups already all matches had been played, and the number 3 ended with fewer points, at that point in the tournament, it was already clear that France and the Netherlands would qualify, even if they lost that last match, because with 4 points they would still have more points than the third in other groups. And also in groups that would play later, it was very unlikely that all of them would get, all numbers 3 would get to 4 points. So it was looking good anyway for both teams. They would normally qualify mathematically. They would qualify. So when we look at France's historical performance, so the 5 matches previous to their match in Poland, which was 2 matches from the Euro tournament. The last one was a 0-0 against the Netherlands, and match number 4 was a 1-0 win against Austria, and the other 3 matches were from the Euro qualifiers. And for Poland, the first 2 matches got lost, 1-3 against Austria and 1-2 against the Netherlands, and then you see the other 3 matches which were qualifiers for the Euro, which was 1 win, 1 loss, and 1 draw. So normally, France would have the clearly better chances of winning that match without a weak start for France. They would have had a 51.3% chance of a win. Now it's 41.3%. And while Poland, without a weak start for France, would have had a 24.7% chance of a win, and now it's a 34.7% chance of a win. You see the margin is less than 10%. So in this case, I predict a draw. And finally, the Netherlands versus Austria, which is another match from that group, from the last group round. The last, the final. So there are 3 group rounds. This was the third group round. So while France and Poland faced off, also we had a match, the Netherlands versus Austria. Netherlands had a 0-0 against France in match 5 and a 2-1 win against Poland in match 4. And the previous 3 matches were from the qualifiers in the Euro. Away matches, by the way, for France, Poland, Netherlands, and Austria. I'm using the last 5 away matches because, okay, so that means there was no home. No team for which we use home matches here, but that's okay because it was a tournament in Germany. So, theoretically, all teams traveling to Germany could have the same away disadvantage due to travel, due to having to play in a different environment as usual. Um, so in this case, the Netherlands, the previous 5 matches, 4 wins and 1 draw. Austria, the previous 5 matches, well, the last match was 3-1 win against Poland. The first match, as I discussed earlier, a 1-0 loss against France. But then the 3 qualifier matches, well, 2 wins and 1 draw. So all in all, also quite an okay picture. Normally, without a weak start for the Netherlands, the Netherlands would have had 42.7% chance of a win, and Austria 34. So it would have been most probably. Let's see. It would have been in that case a draw. The prediction, but in this case, since the Netherlands had already like mathematically already qualified, and Austria needed well, I mean, they could have had enough with a draw because they won 1 match. But, I mean, at least they had more of an incentive to win that last match than the Netherlands. So, no weak start for Austria in this case. So, the Netherlands had a 32.7% chance of a win, Austria 44%, and there was a 23.3% chance of a draw. So this my prediction here was that Austria would win, and indeed they won 2-3, 2 goals for the Netherlands and 3 for Austria. So yes, you see that only taking into account historical data, you can face some limitations, especially when you are in a stage in a tournament when there are, certain factors that may create either weaker incentives for a team to win, or maybe contextual factors like, several players being injured, or, 2 or 3 or 4 players being suspended because of yellow and/or red cards, or whatever. Especially in that in those circumstances, the historical data may actually fall short. You may not get a good prediction. So when at least there is a mechanism that allows you to take that information into account using predefined categories, then you can actually consistently make better predictions of matches in certain stages of a tournament or league. Well, that's it for this video, this time a little bit longer. I hope you find this useful, and well, most probably in a week from now I will also apply this model to the prediction of the finals and also matches for the 3rd place for the men's and women's football or soccer tournaments in the Olympics. Well, I hope you found this useful. Have a good day. Stay tuned for more updates. And well, also in a week from now, check in for the predictions for the Olympics, the final matches for the Olympics. Bye bye.